If your company is running you and you're not running it, there's chaos. You got people rolling their eyes and this is just the way it is, going, oh, same shit, different day. Then you've got a chaotic business. And if you've got a chaotic business, it's costing you money. If you don't have the right systems in place as well, all that hard-earned money you're doing with all the other things is just going to be hemorrhaging out. If people start to think you're going bust, whether you are or whether you're not, and most of the time you're not, that goes around like wildfire. Contractors are renowned for going to early morning breakfast meetings, and they complain about who's not paying, and they will talk about clients. The next minute, people are putting up a sign or people aren't turning up on site. And at this point, is anyone focused on delivering your job?
Welcome to Taking the Con Out of Construction, the straight-talking show that's changing the industry, one episode at a time. Small mistakes can cost big money, and even more in time. But a small investment in listening to this episode could help you avoid disputes, delays, and costly pitfalls, while giving you the know-how to stop problems before they start. Let's turn complexity into clarity and take the con out of construction.
Welcome back to Taking the Con Out of Construction. In this episode, we're exploring a different kind of chaos which plagues the construction industry. Not dramatic disputes or big blow-ups, but the quieter, everyday chaos that comes from ingrained bad practices and outdated systems. Michelle, you've spent years helping businesses untangle this kind of operational clutter, so I'm keen to hear your take on how these hidden inefficiencies creep in and what companies can do to bring clarity, structure, and sanity back into their projects.
Most construction business owners think that their cash flow problems are caused by late payments or payments being slow or clients not paying the full payment on time. That's what they think is the only cause of their cash flow problems, but that's not true. The truth is that chaos costs them much more than a bad payer ever will. So in today's episode, I'm talking about how the invisible costs of chaos and not running your business in the most optimal way actually have a massive effect on your business, cost you money. And when you get systems, roles and processes in place and clear, that's one of the biggest and fastest ways to stop money hemorrhaging out of your business. But what people don't understand is the cost of that chaos and how it affects not just their profits, but also their ability to deliver. You can't build a profitable business on poor foundations. So if you don't have good systems in place, if you're leaking finances left, right and center and your bank account is like a colander and there's just money flying out, you don't invest in a decent accounts team or financial system, then you are asking for trouble and there's going to be chaos behind the scenes. We spoke about getting information to you properly. Directors need the correct information in the correct format, delivered in the correct way in order to make the correct decisions. So many leaders make the wrong decisions because it's based on incorrect information. Now, obviously, that's something that I work with a lot with my clients, but there's a little bit more than that. The amount of companies that I've worked with, and the reason that I specialize the way that I do is because first of all, I thought I was jinxed because every company I seem to be attracted to, even though I'd ask the right questions in an interview, is there this, is there that? And yeah, everything's perfect, everything's fine. 3 months in, when I'm invested in the business, I realize that no one's getting paid, there isn't any money, and all the same things are happening from company to company. And I just saw it being repeated and repeated and repeated. Every company was different, every ethos was different, every leader was different, every system they use, it could be different products, different banking systems, different accounting systems, but there were so many similarities between each company that had created chaos. And where my magic and the alchemy comes from is that maybe it's because I'm female, maybe it's because I started my dad's construction business as a young girl asking questions. I will go into businesses and speak to the people because for me, the best assets in any business and the success of any business is based on the people in it. So I will often go in and speak to the relevant people, and it's very easy for me to establish who are the loyal people, who are the not so loyal people, who are still going to be with this business in a year's time or 12 months time, who might be technically toxic in the business. And once you get clarity in a business, people can't hide behind it anymore. And I love the psychological side. I'm not a psychologist, but I love understanding the different people. And actually, people aren't as different as you expect them to be. They might look different, they might speak differently, but ultimately, there's only a few sort of archetypes of different people, and you'll find them in construction businesses. I often find conversations with the accounts department, especially, and I've always believed, but I've been acting as a QS, commercial manager, commercial director, there can be a friction between the QS side of things and accountants, because the QS always want money that the accountants don't necessarily have. Or a lot of the time we'll find there is an issue in a business between those two departments. Either they don't communicate, which is disaster, or they're at each other's throats and battling against one another. And that's normally because there's lack of communication and one party isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing. So I often work with the QSs to make sure they give the accountancy team exactly what they need to be able to do their jobs. I will often find someone that's very loyal, and you've normally got someone in an accountancy team that's been there for years. It's generally a bit annoyed, depressed, but they're so loyal for whatever reason, whether it's because of they believe in the business, they believe in the leader, whatever it is, they're still there, even though they know the business should be better and it's painful for them. And you get a lot of information out of them and find out what's really going on within the business and where the problems are. And talking to these people and actually validating them and seeing them for the gems that they are is the most successful thing that I find when I'm doing a transformation of a business, because they know that business and I can get up to speed really, really quickly. Don't get me wrong, I'm always aware that there are some grumpy people in certain businesses, and some accountancy teams do tend to have somebody that's a bit grumpy, but they're grumpy for a reason. And yeah, you can just have someone that's just one of those doom and gloom type people. There's always an Eeyore somewhere, but most of us find Eeyore adorable, or not everybody is. But speaking to the people and finding out exactly what's going on in the business and how the business works on a daily basis, and it's quite common that I find when I find these gems, the directors appreciate them to some extent. They know they're loyal. Do they take them for granted? Probably. Are they grateful for them? Probably not. Do they listen to them? Rarely. But they're just so-and-so and so-and-so. That's actually probably been with them and their biggest fan, growing and supporting them. And then they found somebody else that's a bit more fancy looking or has got a nicer suit or boost their ego. And they forget about these diamonds. So one of the first things I do when I'm coming into a business that's trouble is find out where the diamonds are, because they're invaluable with their information. So you need to find out who your diamonds are and actually look after them, because when chaos is ensued and everyone's running around, so you haven't got enough money to pay people and people are annoyed. As a QS for years, say for example, we've got £1.2 million to be paid out, but for whatever reason, there's only £1 million. Guaranteed, I will not be productive for days, because all I'm doing is answering the phone. People aren't being paid on time. Certificates aren't being issued on time. Payments aren't being made on time. QSs will waste hours, weeks being chased by money. You turn up on site and someone will drag you, where's my payment? Because people start getting nervous when payments aren't coming through and they waste time. I've tried to explain this to a number of finance teams. Some people do it, some people don't. Some people care, some people don't. But if you tell me, if I'm supposed to have £1.2 million going out tomorrow, next week, whenever it is, and I know full well there's only 100,000 going, talk to me, tell me. I know which companies are going to take that, which aren't. I can have conversations. I don't know why this is always the way in construction. I think it's wrong. They want to pay everyone's invoices in full. Actually, I would prefer if we've only got $1 million and we're owed 1.2, rather than people not getting paid at all, we pay everybody 80%. People would prefer that than nothing, but let's communicate and say we've got a problem. There is an issue, whatever that problem may be, but you need to make sure that's a one-time only. But it's not just the QS that's not doing any work, nor the accounts team. And then you get a situation where the accounts team don't answer the phone because all they're doing is getting chased and people are getting harassed. And some people can be really rude and it's difficult and repeating the same conversations and telling the same lies or the same reason or the same excuse. And then they don't answer the phone. So then all of a sudden people are going, oh, they've gone bust, they've gone bust, they've gone bust. And so then the QS is now getting calls. The project manager's getting calls. The site manager's getting calls. The director may get a call if they've got hold of it. But all of a sudden you've got 10, 15, 20 contractors calling everyone, trying to find out where the money is. And then they're getting nervous. But then also, no one's doing anything on site because no one's getting paid extras, or they're not able to pay expenses this week, or they're not able to pay overtime this week. And then all of a sudden they're not on price anymore, they're on day weeks, or whatever it may be. It affects the team. So then it affects the morale. And then all of a sudden you're in delay, which is going to cost you even more money. Chaos in a business is expensive, and it's the biggest killer of businesses because nobody knows what anybody's doing. And all of a sudden you've got 25 people in your business that aren't being productive. And it won't be every subcontractor, but I guarantee you've got at least one, if not two, likely to be 5, and they will ring you every single day. So they'll ring me 4 or 5 times a day until I answer, which then puts me in a bad mood. And then I'm depleted, and then I'm having a conversation with someone, or I'm agreeing an account with someone, or maybe I'm sitting with a new client trying to get some new business, and I've got this guy hounding me that isn't getting paid. And therefore, I might not be actually in that meeting in my full strength because I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, I'm taking another client on who's not going to get paid or not going to deliver, or could be in a meeting with a subcontractor promising, yeah, cool, everything's fine, it's going to get paid. And the subcontractor sees this guy ringing me 30 times. They know full well because they haven't been paid. They know that. We all know that. Don't need to explain it. We know. Then all of a sudden, oh, we're not necessarily going to get paid. The price goes up or you lose the contractor. So what people don't understand is how their chaos affects it. Now, take all these phone calls and all this hounding and the emails and the harassment and all the rest of it. If people start to think you're going bust, whether you are or whether you're not, and most of the time you're not, that goes around like wildfire. What shocks me most, the amount of leaders in construction that don't understand people talk on site. And they do. They don't just talk on site. Contractors are renowned for going to early morning breakfast meetings, and they will sit there and they will complain about who's not paying, and they will talk about clients. The next minute it goes around like wildfire, and then people are putting up a sign or people aren't turning up on site. It sends people into a spiral. And at this point, is anyone focused on delivering your job? Nah. So then what happens? Your job isn't motivated. Your site manager's got the ump. Your project manager's got the ump. Your QS has got the ump. Your accounts team's got the ump. Everyone's got the ump. Are they springing out of bed in the morning to go and deliver your project? No. So then what happens? Oh, the project's in delay. Is the site manager going to turn around to his leader or his boss or whoever and go, well, do you know what? Everyone's got the ump. No one's being paid. There's no morale out here. I can't be bothered, so I haven't pushed him. So therefore, this hasn't happened, blah, 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 blah. Are they going to tell you the truth? Highly unlikely. The next minute, they're going to blame the subcontractor. They're going to come up with an excuse to the subcontractor. So then you're going to have this battle with a subcontractor. And then you're going to have a look at maybe a dispute crystallizing the subcontractor. Is that getting your project built? No. Is this a fault of the client? No. So now you're in delay. Can you blame the client for this? You might be able to blag something. And if you're lucky, the client has delayed you concurrently and you can claim that, but maybe not. That's not solid ground. That's not a good foundation for a claim. So what you're going to have to do, you're going to have to get a consultant in to come and fabricate a claim you don't actually have, but it's basically happened because none of them are motivated. No one's pushing your site because actually they think you're going to go bust and no one's going to get paid. So why should they? So you've got a delay that is your fault because you haven't managed your clients, you haven't managed your cash flow, you haven't priced your job properly, you haven't got the right fees, you've annoyed everyone, you've not been communicating. There's a whole heap of mess. And now what have you got? LADs. So LADs are liquidated and ascertained damages. So if you are late in delivering and in your contract, it says for every week you have £500, £5 million, could be anything in between. I've had LADs of £1 million a day before. And obviously, yes, okay, you can have ridiculous LADs. And in order to deduct them, they have to prove that that is a loss to the company for your delay. However, fighting that's going to cost you money. So the chaos of you not having the right systems and processes in place to deliver the information, to make the right decisions, cash flow forecast, to make sure you know what money's coming in, money's coming out, understanding your overhead and your profit. What is overhead? What is profit? What sales revenue you need to have in order to hit your overhead percentage, what that's based on, your finance charges that's included, doing your applications for payment properly, applying for variations properly, doing loss and expense count properly, making sure that your team is organized, keeping morale, making sure that your people are paid on time. And if they're not paid on time, explain to them why and have contingency, making sure you've got the adequate cash flow, you've allowed for everything and all your boxes are ticked. If you don't have any of that and your company's in chaos, the cost of that is unquantifiable. So how do we bring this back? When I'm transforming a company, as I said before, the first thing I do is start with the people. So sometimes it takes me a little bit of time to get the people around, but it's very simple for me to do. So I will make them promises and I will keep them. So a lot of what happens in construction industries when they're in chaos is people lose faith, they lose hope, they're a bit demotivated. A lot of the time they've written the company off or they don't think anything is going to change and they've just kind of accepted life for the way that it is, which is sad. So I come in and sometimes they've had another director or a salesperson come in before promising them the world and deliver nothing. For me, in order to really transform a business, I need to get the team on side. Now, sometimes I've reallocated people, different jobs. So I try to find out what annoys them the most. Because we're in 2025 AI is not going anywhere. There's a lot of people scared of it, but actually there's a ways of using it. But it's not just AI. Technology is there. Like, it's not going anywhere. We need to use it to our advantage. Construction have been a little bit behind, but also it's like getting the right people. And the amount of companies that I've been in, and some sales guy has sold them this amazing system that's going to do all these bits and pieces, but they never actually speak to the people that need to use the system and get their input on it. Because I've recently got a Mac. I've been a PC girl my entire life. Although I've had an Apple phone since Apple 3 came out. Is that the first phone? I can't remember. I had an iPod before that. I've had an iPad the whole way through. I've got an Apple Watch. I've been all Apple for more years than I want to admit to. Got a Mac. First thing I sent to my friends, I didn't like it because I didn't know how to use it and it didn't quite work with me. Okay, now I'm getting there. I'm still not amazing at it. I've had it for months now. Supposed to catch up with a friend to explain how to use it, but I'm just kind of getting on with it. However, I understand how difficult it is to use a new system that doesn't necessarily work the way that my brain works. The mechanics of the business revolve around people. And yeah, you can get systems to do stuff, but especially in construction, you need that human element. And as much as I think AI is around to contribute to that, I don't think it's going to take over yet because construction is just too complex. But there are ways to simplify things. And AI is a whole different topic. But there are systems and processes around. There's a lot of software out there now that can help people with different things and do different elements of different aspects. Implementing a system that none of the team have seen or involved in, people work in different ways and brains work differently. What might work for you might not work for somebody else. And I often find that directors will make a decision on something that's going to be all singing and dancing. The idea behind it comes from a good place. They want to make things easier for their staff. They don't think about asking their staff what their opinion are, who theoretically are the experts of that particular task. So I find out what part of their job they hate. I find out what part of their job they like. I find out where they see the future, what they're looking for. The amount of times that you've had somebody that's just sitting there that really wants to grow, but has just been stagnant. And then you've got other people that are being pushed to grow. They're actually quite happy. So I find out what's going on with the people because ultimately they're my assets and I can change things around. So I've told the story before of companies I've gone in where I had 4 QSs and one like this aspect, and then I changed them around and the productivity just excelled and they were winning more projects, delivering more projects, and the company just totally transformed just by getting the QS team working more efficiently. It's the same with any other business, depending on who you've got. I've been in companies where you have had an absolute diamond that's answered the phone and sat in reception. She ended up being business development because that woman was so loyal and so sold on the vision of the team and aligned with that business. She ended up going out there and selling, and she was brilliant at it. And she had been sitting on the phone and sitting in reception, welcoming people. She knew that business inside out. She loved it. She was passionate about it. She knew every aspect of that business. And she was the best salesperson they've ever had. This is not uncommon. This happens all the time. So I find out what's going on in the business. I have a look and say, right, this isn't working properly. That's not working properly. And then I try and quick fixes to try and make their life easier. We do have to implement systems, and I allow them to eye roll at me, and I will give them an eye roll and say, right, this is what we're doing. And go on, eye roll at me, have your moment, kick and scream, swear at me, whatever you want to do. We are implementing a new system. And by this time, there's a bit of trust that I've built back because often in these companies I go into, whether it be a project specific or a company, people have lost faith, they've lost motivation, they've lost trust. So we're implementing this system, but this is what it's going to do. And I explain to them how I've listened to them. And this is your biggest pain point. It's going to get rid of this. It's going to do this. And then it's going to do that. And trust me, when it spits out this, that's going to go to the director. And then they'll be like, oh, but they won't look at it. That's my problem. And I'll bet you whatever motivates them, what they're into, I will bet you something if I'm wrong. I will give you a voucher for whatever it may be. I'll buy you those shoes you want, whatever it is. So again, they eye roll at me again, and that's fine. Because at this point, I know what this is going to produce, and I know how this is going to affect someone else, and I know how I'm going to deliver this message to the person it needs to be delivered to. Then we sort of move things around and get the system working better. So then all of a sudden, we're taking away the pinch points of every individual's pain within that business, which is demotivating them. And also, if you don't want to do something, it's the last of your list. So if you've got a to-do list that's as long as your arm, which mine, I'm not sure that I've ever ticked off an entire to-do list, guaranteed thing at the bottom that goes from to next day to next week to next month, and it's still on the to-do list. It's a thing I don't really want to do. And it's the same with everybody. We're all human. That's just the way that we work. If I can take that away or make it simpler or get them to understand the importance of it, QSs, sending payment certificates or pay less notices, they hate doing it because they're time consuming. Maybe I might get someone in the accounts team to do it. They understand how important they are and the fact if you don't do it, there's an adjudication. There's all that money that you're struggling to pay everyone. Now you're going to lose another 10 grand a week or month or whatever it may be to make your life harder, and actually going to get sued, and that could have the company going bust, or you might end up losing your job because this is in your job description. This is the contract that your company signed up to. And sometimes I have to be so blunt saying, this is your job. If you don't do it, I'm going to struggle to recommend you've got to do it. And I don't want to threaten anyone, but ultimately QSs aren't sending out payment certificates or pay less notices. They are exposing the company. So sometimes it's just them understanding the importance of that thing and why they have to do it. They're all skeptical. I know that. That's what motivates me. So yeah, they're skeptical. And I'm like, come on, trust. Let's get this moving. Then all of a sudden things start moving because one system is working. And then one system starts to work. So like, okay, fine. They saved an hour a day, a week. Then we get another system. Then all of a sudden they're all working together. People aren't standing having a coffee, moaning about the business, moaning about this, same shit, different day. They don't have any of that. It's like, oh, what are you doing? What do you think of this? And people are more motivated. All of a sudden, they're going for a drink after work. People like working where they are. They're walking on the spring their step. Sickness goes down. I mean, that's the other thing of chaos that's a big expense. Sickness. Things keep going if people are all sick. Recruitment's expensive. Not just getting the person, or if you're using agencies, which I highly recommend because they're professionals and skilled, obviously you've got to have the right one, but there's a cost associated to them. The training, the fact that whoever is taking, they're coming in a team, that new person is going to take time and productivity away from other people being trained up, and it takes months. And then all of a sudden, if it's a toxic environment, they're not going to stay for long. And then you've got a turnover, and then recruiters don't necessarily want to work with you because everybody gets there, ends up getting really demotivated and depressed, or you're opening yourself up to all sorts of problems of people being signed off sick with stress and long-term sickness, which happens when there are companies that are chaotic. So you're losing motivation. Like, chaos costs you money, so much money. And I've never, ever been called in to save a company that's not chaotic. Ever. Okay, I have been called into fairly good, well-organized companies that have had problems with a particular contract, but that's because of a particular contract. And normally what's happened is they haven't done something correctly on site, or the contract wasn't negotiated properly in the first place, or there's a lack of understanding. And I quite clearly get their client to understand where they've got wrong, what they've done wrong, and where they are in the legal stance, and get them paid, but we iron out the problems. But those kind of companies, and I've got a few clients that I literally just come in and save the day as and when they need to. They work like clockwork. Their teams absolutely idolize their leader. They all go out socially together. They love coming to work. You hear them laughing and joking and everything's amazing. They'll do things together outside of work. They're all motivated, everyone's happy, and they're all working their best because they believe in the business, they believe in the leader, they believe in what they're doing, they feel like they've got a purpose. And you don't get sickness, you don't get people leaving, you get people staying for years and years and years. And ultimately, I've got a few clients I'm working with at the moment that their team are so loyal to the business and they love it so much, and they're now looking at a management buyout. It's not that I'm saying that everybody wants to do that, but ultimately business is business and leaders are leaders, and you need to have an exit plan. A lot of leaders don't have an exit plan. But if you've got a chaotic company, who's going to want to buy that? That's not sellable. And if you've got a chaotic company that is depending on you and it doesn't operate without you, you're not going to be able to sell that. That's not an asset. So chaos, yeah, might just be the way it is and the way it's always been, but it doesn't have to be like that. And actually it costs you money. And a lot of the time, the companies where I save them money, yes, getting their cash flow right, getting their tenders right, reporting back, cross-referencing information, getting information flow from people to points so you understand what you're delivering, what you bought, what the actual cost of this project was, what the cost of this subcontractor was, what your cost of your financing, how you're allocating costs, how you're doing loss and expense, how you're doing variations account, how you're getting the money you deserve, how you get paid on time, how you do valuations, how you agree final accounts. There's all of these things coming to the mix. But ultimately, if you don't have the right systems in place as well, all that hard-earned money you're doing with all the other things is just going to be hemorrhaging out. So yes, I look at quick fixes, but the longer term fix is making sure that your company is working like a well-oiled machine. When I'm speaking to people that aren't in the construction industry and don't really understand what I do, which even some people in the construction industry don't understand. So for the construction team, I'm a bit like a mechanic. So I know how the parts are working, and some of it needs a little bit of oil, something needs replacing, something needs tweaking. And I basically turn chaotic construction companies, I create the clarity and get them working as a well-oiled money-making machine. But it's not an easy fix. And obviously we've got a number of episodes that we've gone through of all the bits and pieces that you need to do, but you also need to manage people and try and reduce chaos. If your company is running you and you're not running it, there's chaos. You got people rolling their eyes and this is just the way it is and a bit demotivating, going, oh, same shit, different day, then you've got a chaotic business. And if you've got a chaotic business, it's costing you money. Systems can be put in place, processes can be put in place. Sometimes you've got the wrong team. Sometimes it's just one bad cog that needs to be removed or replaced. There's a number of ways of doing it, but have a look. And chaos is not the way it needs to be, because there are a lot of companies, very successful companies in this industry, that are not chaotic. They're incredible places to work. I've met so many of them, and they have incredible workspaces. They have incredible motivated teams. People are encouraged to do extra things, and the company has money to encourage those things and have those nice facilities, because ultimately they've got motivated teams and they're not wasting money on chaotic things and chasing their tails. And that's expensive. Firefighting is not the only option. Yes, sometimes it has to be done, but it's not the way. And if you've got a reactive team rather than a proactive team, that is going to be costing you money. So if you've got chaos in your business, I'm not saying it's all doom and gloom. Obviously, it can be transformed. I've got lots of examples of where this has happened. My biggest advice, yes, we've discussed the diamonds in the rough, but also what happens as businesses grow. And a lot of these diamonds, some of them are new, don't get me wrong. A lot of time when I find a diamond in this business, they've been there from the beginning. And they become part of the furniture. But what I found, especially watching my dad's company grow as a young child, I mean, I was in my dad's offices every day after school from the age of like 9 or 10. I started answering the phones at 11, but I was always there and I used to watch things. And I watched my dad's company grow from a turnover of like 3 million to 45 million, then up to 75 million. I did my work experience there and I watched it grow and I watched the difference of people. And I actually saw, even at 15, who the toxic people were. And most of them were the ones that had the biggest paychecks. And actually, my dad would probably admit to you now that the majority of the issues with his business was because he trusted and paid the wrong people. And a lot of people assume in leadership, and it's not just my dad, it's throughout the industry, because someone's got a good price tag or a high price tag, they're therefore the best. And they might be good. I'm not cheap. I never have been and I never will be. But doesn't necessarily mean I'm the right fit for your business. And it's the same with everyone. Yes, you have an area of expertise. I've seen loads and loads of people that have incredible financial directors, and I work with them in one company and then they come to another company. But actually the companies aren't the same. And they excelled in one company and they drown in another because they just don't get it and the ethos doesn't right and their skill set just isn't right. It's the same as I said with QSs before. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be the right fit for your business. You hear a lot about being interviewed by the company, but actually as a candidate, who interviews the company? Because that's what you should be doing. It should be a two-way street. So although I've interviewed every company I've ended up working for, and sometimes they've lied to me and I need to do my research, but I'm slightly different and I've always ended up where I'm supposed to be. And I do believe that. So what happens with these businesses is the leaders end up being so far removed from the diamonds that may have stayed in the same position or not. They lose connection with their people. And it won't be just one. Like a lot of the time, a company will grow and they draw people to them that support their business and support the growth. And then the company goes from 2 people to 10 people to 20 people to 50 people to 100 people. Not everybody stays, but you often have few people that grow with them. And then other people come in, and not everybody wants to climb the corporate ladder, but some people do. But what happens is there's a distance between the leader and the people that they brought in and that believe in them. There's a distance. And there's also the people that not just believe in them, the people that know them. And leaders might change the car they drive, the way they dress, the projects they go through, the size of the business, but they don't tend to change their core. And a lot of the time I've noticed with people where they're not aligned with their business anymore, they're not aligned with their team either. And there's no harm in just, do you know what, picking up the phone and speaking to someone that you trust within your business that stood by you and finding out what the truth, and you know what, taking that truth, and it might not be pleasant. It really might not. Companies that I know that the directors, doesn't matter how many the staff they've got, are still either involved in reviews of their staff, whether they be quarterly or annually. They might not be involved in the meeting, but they read the reports, like making sure what's happening, or they at least update with their HR team or whoever it may be as a company grows. Yes, okay, if your company grows to having thousands and thousands of employees, that's very difficult to do. But I'm not working with those kind of companies. I'm working with companies or projects with values of like between 5 and 50 million. So I'm not talking about the massive global corporations. That's not who I work with. But If you've got a team in place, make sure you're checking in with the managers about each of their teams. Have an idea what's happened with your staff. And I don't mean everyone, of course, but you've got some people that have been with you for 20 years. Check in with them, because if they're still with you, they're loyal and they will know what's going on. I mean, I've gone into companies specifically in a low level to find out what's going on because nobody knew who I was. And I spend a few weeks as just like a QS or whatever, but I find out what's really going on. And when there's no directors about, how I've seen people switch and how I've seen people act totally differently and on camera and off camera on Teams meetings. You see that when you're at low level. And there has been a few situations where I've met with clients and they know there's a problem in their business. They just don't know where it is. And I just go in and like undercover and figure out what's going on. And then all of a sudden I'm like, here, there's a report and this is the toxic person. It's not something I enjoy doing, but I've done it before. And it's amazing what you see growing up, how I saw people treated differently and how people would change the way they treated me when they found out who I was. I remember I was about 16 and I was in my dad's offices in London. We were on the top floor and I think I was getting a drink or something or other. I looked a lot older than 16. And my dad looked up the stairs, he saw me and he whacked me with his paper, like a little, "Hi, I'm here," whatever. I think he might have been on the phone at the time, probably. He's always on the phone. And I saw in the corner of my eye this bloke looking, thinking, "Oh, what's here? Oh, there's a boss getting flirty with an office junior," or something like that. Clearly didn't know me very well because I'm the spitting image of my dad. And I didn't pay much attention to it. It wasn't until afterwards. And then I was like, "Dad, do you want a drink?" And then all of a sudden, this person's whole demeanor changed. Like they stood up and they were like cheesy and totally changed the way they treated me. They used to be rude, obnoxious to me. Then all of a sudden, I'm the best thing since sliced bread. That happened a lot through my teenage years because I worked for my dad quite a bit when I was younger. And I just watched that happen in front of my eyes as a young person. So I'm more than aware how people can change on and off camera or in front of people. And to be fair, when you're good at selling, which most construction leaders are, selling their services, their skill set, whatever it is, you're also easily sold. So I am quite easy to be sold to. Majority of the leaders I work with are easily sold. Well, at least one of them is. Not necessarily the whole team. There's normally a mixture, but there's always one that's easily sold that comes up with all the wacky, weird ideas, and myself included. They can be easily sold to, and it's quite often for toxic people to sell a dream to a leader that takes them on, but they don't understand the price of that. And those toxic people sometimes create absolute chaos in their business, and there's an ultimate cost for that, and they lose people. So if you've had a business that you've grown over a number of years, and you've had some loyal staff and they go, you need to find out why. And if you can't save them, have a conversation with them. Biggest piece of advice I can give you, have a conversation with them before they've left. And it may be too late, but have an exit conversation with them. Take them out for a drink or a coffee or whatever. Lunch, value them. And then they may change their mind, they may not. They might retire, they may not. But give them a situation where they can speak to you openly and honestly, because you will find out much more about your business in that half an hour, 40 minutes, an hour than you will ever learn from a consultant. And if people will start suddenly disappearing and your turnover is really, really high, the amount of recruitment consultants that I work with would actually tell the leader, "Listen, in the nicest possible way, you're the problem," or "there is a problem within the business." Find out what's going on, because toxic people will ruin your business. And normally they're the ones that are kissing your backside and the ones you least expect. So yes, there is chaos, but the morale of your business, the ethos of your business, the culture of your business is what makes or breaks your profit line. So when people are happy and they're motivated, and you go back to Maslow's hierarchy of motivational theories, and you've got these graphs and all these different things, and there's only so many different motivational theories out there, but actually they're true. And what people don't realize is the more motivated someone is, because they're valued and there's less chaos and they're in the right job, they've got the right tools, they've got the right equipment, it's much more important and more effective than whether they're being paid the right amount of money, because people feel valued. People like their jobs to not be chaotic. No one really likes chaos. I mean, maybe me, but what I thrive on is getting clarity out of that chaos. Maybe that's why I was blessed with twins. But for me, I get a kick out of solving the problem. So I go into a chaotic company. It's like the Tasmanian devil. So that's how I imagine the company. It's just like turmoil and just craziness. And then I do my thing. I put some systems and processes. I tweak a few bits. That's the alchemy about what I do. I take what I've got and I rearrange it, add a few bits and pieces, turn it around and make it into something beautiful. And that is where I work. It's mainly on the people, getting systems and processes in place and actually get the money working for them, get the people working for them, and getting the business working as it should be. Chaos is expensive, and there is another way. If you can create clarity from your chaos, you create confidence. And when you can create confidence, you create cash flow. When people are confident and more motivated and happy with what they're doing, you're literally laughing all the way to the bank.
Thank you, Michelle. Wise words, as always. Money can't buy happiness, but happiness can make money. Look after your staff, and they will look after your business. Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
If you found value in today's episode, hit subscribe so you never miss a new release, and share it with someone in the industry who needs to hear it. To learn more, access resources, or find out how Michelle Carr and Construction Alchemy can help you protect your projects, solve problems, and boost your profits, visit constructionalchemy.co.uk. Together, we can change the industry, one project, one company, and one episode at a time. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are based on the personal experiences of Michelle Carr and her guests. They are for general information only and should not be relied upon as professional or legal advice. Always seek your own independent advice before making decisions. Neither Michelle Carr nor Construction Alchemy accepts liability for any loss, damage, or consequences arising from actions taken based on this podcast. Thank you for listening.